So today with Firefighter Storytime from Station 2, we've got Big Frank's fire truck. It's 9 o'clock on Monday morning. Big Frank is just getting to work. Big Frank is a firefighter. He works 24-hour shift. That means he'll be on duty all day and all night. This is the firehouse. This is where Big Frank lives, sleeps, and eats while he's at work. Big Frank checks in and goes over his schedule. At 11 o'clock, he'll make a fire inspection at the supermarket. At 2 o'clock, he will visit the elementary school to talk about fire safety. Big Frank has to be prepared for all kinds of emergencies too. Who knows what will happen during his shift? The fire chief asks Big Frank to fuel up the fire trucks. Big Frank heads for the garage. Big Frank's company has 3 fire trucks. The hook and ladder is used for aerial rescues. The brush breaker has 4-wheel drive and can go where there are no roads. Big Frank drives the pumper engine. The pumper holds water up to 1,000 gallons. After he takes care of the engines, Big Frank checks his gear. He wears a helmet to protect his head, a fireproof coat, and pants to protect his body, and sturdy boots to protect his feet. He has a wooden wedge for propping open doors, and an oxygen pack and mask in case fires are very smoky. Big Frank hangs his equipment next to the pumper engine. Now he is ready for firefighting. Big Frank sits down with his partner Mike for a cup of coffee. Just then the fire bell rings. At the same time, the lights in the front of the station start flashing, and the computer starts printing. Accident at the intersection of Main Street and Laurel Road. Car on fire. Mike, Janet, and Gary jump in the pumper with Big Frank. Big Frank turns on the siren and heads out of the station. Woo, woo! The fire truck roars down Main Street with the siren going full blast. Cars pull over when they hear the noise, and the policemen wave the big engine right through the red light. The firefighters arrive at the scene of the accident in less than 4 minutes. The first thing Big Frank does is check to see if anybody is hurt. He's glad he has paramedic training. He's glad he has his paramedic training. One lady has a bad cut on her head. Big Frank bandages the cut, and Mike radios for an ambulance. Meanwhile, Gary and Janet spray the burning car with special foam made for gasoline fires. The flames go out, and the tow truck comes to haul the wrecked car away. Big Frank returns to the station with the others and fills out his report. He looks at his watch. It's nearly 11 o'clock. He drives over to the quick shop to make his big inspection. Big Frank inspects the store sprinkler system to make sure it's working properly. He checks the emergency doors to see if they will open in case of a fire. He also runs a test of the alarm system. The supermarket has a smoke alarm that rings right in the fire station. Everything looks okay. Back at the firehouse, Big Frank eats lunch with the other firefighters. Then he takes a short nap in his bunk. At 2 o'clock, Big Frank and Mike drive the pumper engine over to the Niceview Elementary School. Big Frank and Mike talk to the 2nd grade class about fire safety. Mike tells them that smoke detectors are very important. He shows them how to check their smoke detectors at home. Big Frank teaches the class to do in a case of a house fire. He tells them to stay low so they won't breathe too much smoke. Then he shows them how to stop, drop, and roll. On the way back to the station, a call comes over the radio. Brush fire at Dairy Hill. Big Frank turns the pumper around and heads for Dairy Hill. He and Mike will meet the rest of the company there. Big Frank is worried. There hasn't been any rain for a long time, and the wind is blowing. This could be a bad fire. Big Frank and Mike reach the fire after a little after 4 o'clock. They go right to work. They spray water around the edges of the blaze to keep it from spreading. The wind blows and the sparks fly through the air. When the rest of the company arrives, the fire chief tells Janet and Gary to hose down the roofs of the nearby houses. That will help keep the sparks from setting the houses on fire. At nightfall, the wind picks up speed. Suddenly, the fire goes out of control and races towards the forest. The fire is too big for one company to handle alone. Big Frank radios for help. 2 more companies are on their way. Big Frank knows all about firefighters in the other companies. He has worked with them many times. Together they'll make a good team. By midnight, they have saved the nearby houses from catching fire. They have headed off the blaze to the north, south, and east, but the fire is still spreading west through the trees. Even the brush breakers can't keep up. Big Frank calls in a squad of special firefighting helicopters. Soon they are whirling overhead. Firefighters battle the blaze from the ground. The helicopters drop chemicals from the air. Finally, after 14 hours, the fire begins to die out. The worst is over. Big Frank is tired. No wonder. It's nearly 6 o'clock in the morning. As soon as the next shift of firefighters arrives, Big Frank and his company head back to the firehouse. Back at the station, Big Frank helps wash down the trucks. They're so sooty from the fire. Big Frank is dirty too. He has ashes all over him, even in his hair. Big Frank jumps in the shower and puts on a clean clothes and eats a big breakfast. It's 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning. Big Frank's shift is over. Big Frank waves goodbye to the other firefighters. He can't wait to go home. He can't wait to hug Amber and little Frank. Big Frank will have 2 days off to spend with his family. Then he'll start another shift, fighting fires and helping everyone's family stay safe and sound. So unlike Big Frank's fire truck, we operate for 2 days in a row, so we work 48 hours straight, and then we get 4 days off to go home with our families. Working 4 days a week, we work with 6 different people within our firehouse. We run out of 2 different pieces of apparatus. One's a medic unit, and one's a heavy rescue, which responds on all special rescues, including medicals and fires. So we have a lot to take care of in our short little span that we are here. But sometimes we can get tired. Sometimes we're up late at night. And we do take naps like Big Frank every so often. Sometimes we're not that lucky.